First things first, guys. How are you?
Very well. I'm very well rested after last night's sleep. I slept for about 11 hours.
Okay. Much needed?
Yeah, so needed.
Definitely.
We went to watch the Netherlands versus Italy in the friendly at the Amsterdam Arena.
Okay.
That's when we started getting tired. We were like yawning throughout the whole thing. No, the first 10 minutes were good, but then it started getting a little bit boring. But like international friendlies are like that. But we wanted to just go for the experience.
Yeah.
And then the boys in New Meat 6, a couple of them went to see Drake, which we're super envious about. But yeah, whatever.
Okay. Well, before we get into the album, I like to talk about something else. Big Suze.
Big Suze.
When, or what is your best memory of being in Big Suze?
That's a great question.
Best memory for me was shutting our guitarist's fingers in the sliding door.
I was going to say something similar to that as well.
Fond memories of trying to break Chris's fingers.
There's been a lot of tantrums in that van. When we used to drive ourselves everywhere, I've got a bit of a, not a short fuse, but when it tips over the edge with me, it really does.
It's quite an enclosed space.
Yeah, and I feel like the world's like, and then like, well, I drove into like a car park and there was a restriction, and then like, cut the radio antenna aerial thing off, and everyone went nuts, and then I had to like reverse, and it was like, and it was like so horrible.
Yeah.
That's not a fun memory. That's actually a haunting memory. There's a lot of haunting memories in Big Suze actually.
Yeah, more than fond actually.
More than fond actually, yeah.
We broke down at a festival in the UK.
Yeah.
And the battery had basically gone dead, and it smelled like egg. And it was only afterwards we realised that it was like poisonous.
Okay. Yeah.
And like people were lighting cigarettes up in the van.
Yeah.
And it was like, it could have been so dangerous.
Yeah, that was at Festival Number 6, which was plagued by like biblical style storms, and they like got the Red Cross in, and all these people had their like cars like flooded because there was a car park in the floodplain, which is the best idea I've ever heard. And we had a friend who got like a hot meal and a blanket from the Red Cross in like a sports hall. Amazing. And I put £70 worth of petrol in the diesel engine as well en route to a festival called Barn on the Farm. But we got there in the end. But yeah.
It's a harrowing memory.
So not too many fond memories.
Well, it's a Ford Transit, and it's like you're going hundreds of miles in it. I know we've had good times.
But one thing, as a band, is it important to go through these things together and kind of be on the road together in such a confined space?
100%. I think so. I mean, we get excited about upgrading to this van we're in now because we've spent so long. We did like the equivalent of the circumference of the Earth in miles around the UK alone last year. So we spent a lot of time in that van.
Yeah. It is important, I think. And I think it's what's special about being in a band, because it's kind of like you kind of develop a relationship that is unique to the 4 people, and 5 maybe including Goffy, and 6 maybe including your TM and driver. Like that's a unique relationship. Whether it's a great relationship or not, it's definitely unique.
Sure.
And that's what people pay to see when they see live music. You know, we're not playing, we're not pressing buttons on a laptop. You see a band who are eating and sleeping and writing and recording together and travelling miles in a tiny little van and playing shows and stuff over years. So that's the kind of chemistry that you get from, you know, seeing a band.
Right. So Matt, what is one thing you perhaps learned about Joe in the past couple of years that you didn't know yet?
Joe is Joe doesn't do things in halves. Joe is a man of excess in terms of all the best things like drinking and gambling and smoking and all that kind of stuff. But that's cool. I like it. And playing the drums, more importantly, he doesn't hit it half-heartedly. Absolutely slaps them. He's an absolute sound guy's nightmare, especially in small venues, because you don't really need to mic up the drums with Joe, because you smash them.
Yeah, true.
And vice versa?
If Matthew's tired or sleep deprived, don't push his buttons.
Oh, okay.
That's something I've learned the most. Because I have a habit of getting hyperactive when everyone else is really tired and wanting to sleep. And I'm like, no, let's put the telly on. So I'm blaring out Alan Partridge when everyone wants to sleep, or like bouncing off the walls. And
But no, everyone has like different days of being on and off.
Yeah, sure.
You never get a day when everyone's on. You definitely get days where everyone's off. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so, Joe, you kind of joined a little bit later because the three of you had been playing together. So then you mentioned his hard hitting. So did the sound that you were making at the time, did it change when Joe joined?
Definitely. Yeah. We were almost experimenting with like electronic music, purely because it was me, Chris, and Elliot, and we didn't have a drummer, so we want to do stuff. So you just use the drums that are on like Cubase or Logic. And then their versions of like normal drum kits are crap. So you just do like 808s sound great on computer and stuff. So we kind of worked off that. But then when we met Joe, we could kind of go back to what we were doing in the first place and what we liked to do. And because he was drumming so hard, we turned up the amps, and that's like an easy shortcut to be excited when you turn everything up and just rock out. That's exciting, and that's what we've always wanted to do. Just be excited in the practice room, and then everything else seems to follow.
Do you remember, and particularly for you, Joe, do you remember those first kind of practice sessions that you had with the band?
Yeah, I do. I remember them pretty well actually, because I'd been actually playing bass for a while in another band, and I'd kind of given up on playing the drums because I just wanted to try something different. And then going into those first couple of rehearsals with these guys, I was like quite rusty because I hadn't sat behind a kit for a while, but I still remembered how to kind of hit them hard. So that must have rubbed off on them. They must have been like, okay, well, this guy's a bit rusty, but he can definitely whack them. And I remember actually learning some of the songs, excuse me, that Matt had some demos Matt had sent me, and I kind of learned them, and then when we went into the practice room, like, we didn't practice those songs, we just played some newer songs when you kind of experimenting with the sound and stuff like that, and then it kind of went full circle and we just went back to
I think one of those songs was Stay With Me, actually.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, we had that from a previous band.
Okay.
And it was one of those songs that we just kind of grew into. Like, we wrote it when we were 18 in a previous band. We didn't do it justice until we were 21 and we could actually just play as a proper band. I don't know how to describe it. You like grew into it. It's like we bought clothes that were too big for us. And we were like, oh, that would look cool. And then you kind of grow into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it fits properly.
So was part of this the sound that you were going for? Like you say, you kind of, that heavier sound, that louder sound was maybe more suitable?
Yeah, I think Something in the Water was a big tune for that because knowing that we wanted to pursue a more heavier rock sound, because we just had this extended outro and it was just a jam and we just jammed it and we were like, yeah, jam's cool, jamming is cool. Because we were just doing like 2 and 3 minute pop songs at the time, pop-esque songs,
right,
in terms of like arrangement and structure and stuff. And to do a big jam at the end, and then Chris had a solo, and we were like, okay, this is cool. This is kind of reminding us of like our first loves, like from the bands in the 70s. Like my first love was Led Zeppelin,
right,
because of my dad and that. And just reminded me of us of that, and it was quite exciting because we didn't feel like loads of bands had big, long, extended outros. So that kind of emboldened us to push that kind of sound further on.
Well, you mentioned something very interesting, because maybe it's just my perspective, but in the last couple of years, and you've been included in the BBC Sound Off poll, and there haven't been too many guitar bands and too many kind of heavy that made it through to a wider audience. So was this something lacking in your own kind of view of the musical landscape?
Yeah, I mean, when we were experimenting with tunes, it was more with sounds beforehand. We were pretty much like, rock music is dead, it sucks. It's not very, purely because it wasn't popular.
Right.
And then maybe there wasn't any bands that were really ticking our boxes. But I saw Cage the Elephant support Foals, Ali Pali on Valentine's Day a couple of years back, and that made a huge difference because I was well into the house scene in Reading at the time for about a lost year, and the amount of personality that was on the stage and stuff was just really exciting. It made me just go, oh yeah, rock and roll. I don't care if it's not cool. Like, it's just what turns me on, man. It makes me excited. So yeah, that was a big point for us. And yeah, we got to the point where it was like, well, we just like doing what we're doing, and if people are going to come around to it, they will. We're just gonna do it and see how far we can get, really.
So in that sense, were you surprised that it started taking off?
Yeah, I guess so.
Nobody
really
ever
taken off.
knows kind
Right.
of how it's going to go. You do something because you love it and you're passionate about it. And we did that kind of style music, and I've always been a rock guy. I've always listened to rock, and even through like my early teens, it was like metal and stuff. So I never kind of strayed away from that.
Okay.
So in that sense, yeah, you know, we just did what was passionate, and people, I think, eventually will see that you mean it if you play in that certain way, and nothing's contrived.
Yeah, people are drawn to that kind of thing, especially in the alternative kind of world. It's all about authenticity and being real and passionate. So that's maybe the why we've had some success in that kind of arena.
But especially in the early days then, did it feel like an uphill climb in a way that you kind of had to start
Definitely.
doing it live and cultivating an audience in small sections at a time?
We knew right from the beginning that we didn't want to take any shortcuts. We didn't want to like put a song on a blog and then do like a show in London in some like warehouse art place or anything like that. We knew that we wanted to just get on the road and just go on tour, and that's all we wanted to do. Play lots of shows and burn CDs from WH Smith's, which is like a retailer in England and stuff, and give them out at shows. And it was quite a punky DIY ethos, because in previous bands we'd been managed by some like fairly established management and stuff, and we were almost a bit too young for it, and we were quite lazy about it, and we knew that we just had to do everything ourselves for as long as possible, and kind of work out what it means to book a live show, what it means to put on your own night, what it means to go on tour and finance it yourself, and what it means to write and record and produce your own music. Because all the first demos were produced by Chris, our guitarist, and that's what we gave out to people on CDs and stuff.
We stayed very true to that, I think.
Yeah,
as well.
definitely.
So what clicked in the attitude then, in between those kind of ways of working? What clicked? What made you go, okay, we have to take this serious, we have to put effort in?
It was always, we always put effort in, but I think it was kind of directionless.
Right.
And we needed to fail a couple of times in previous bands to know what not to do. We didn't care about moving to London. Maybe that was something that we wanted to do, like, we can't move to London and we'll get noticed. But there's a couple of key people giving us advice at the time, who we're working with now still, who said we should stay in Reading, because no one comes from Reading. Reading's a whole, no one cares about it. Make it exciting. Put on your own nights. Make the story that the Amazons are from Reading, and make that a thing. And I think that's what we try to do. And I think it's working, because we come from Reading, and Sundial Karma come from Reading, and there's another couple of bands coming up as well. So it's a bit more. There's more to the town than just the festival.
The festival, right.
But yeah, there's never like a moment where it clicks. It's kind of like a natural thing.
Kind of growing pains you have to go through.
Yeah, and it's like when you burn like 30 CDs for this first show that we did, and you go, oh, maybe it won't work, maybe it will work, and then by the end of the night you're like, oh, we don't have any CDs left, so that works, so let's keep on doing that.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then, it started taking off, and then, like I said, the BBC's Soundpoll took notice, MTV took notice, Saying Low took notice. So, what has it been like from that point onwards? Do you think those kind of things are a good thing to have that buzz and hype created around the band?
I think the fact that we have been kind of cutting our teeth over the last 2 years. And touring and writing and recording and doing all this stuff and making lots of mistakes, and it's all been quite under the radar. And I think if if we had in all of these tips. And the main thing was that we wrote and recorded our album last year, when we were really, really under the radar. No one really knew about us, and we had the freedom. Just it wasn't even like, oh, we're so free to create the album we want to create. You just do it, and you're just like, oh, this is fun, this is cool, this is what we've always wanted to do ever since we picked up instruments. This is cool. Someone's paying for us to do an album, and then it's now that we got the tips and stuff. You think like, oh my god, imagine if we got this like platform and recognition before we'd done the album. We'd be shitting it. We'd be so shitting it, because you'd be thinking about what other people think about your music whilst you're doing your first album, and that's not what you want to do at all, I don't think.
No.
And so I think the last 2 years and doing the album, we kind of know who we are a little bit more, and we know where we want to go, and whether or not we got tips from the BBC and MTV, the kind of what we want to do hasn't really changed. So we look at it positively, like BBC and MTV has always been a part of how we consume music whilst growing up. Like BBC's Jules Holland and Radio 1, that's huge for us, and MTV, MTV Rocks, all that stuff. So they're big platforms, and this is a year that, more than any other, that we want to get our music heard by as many people as possible. So how can we say it's a bad thing? It's a great.